Happy Monday to you, Zach.
Hi.
How's it going, buddy? We've got an inside joke that neither of us like the term buddy. It seems like so condescending. So every time I see you, I obviously call you buddy.
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 Pal.
It does feel like a talk down, right? Like
It does. It is. I mean, that's...
I do it to my son though, because it's like, hi, buddy. But that's appropriate because it's like, that's my child.
This to be recording.
Oh yeah, what do you got going on there? Is it not recording? Oh yeah, it says pause.
Sorry. I had it all set up, so I just had to push a button.
No, you're good. Did you run out of space? No. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Buddy.
Hi, buddy. Well, we've got a good one today. The top 10 questions that clients will ask you before your first session. I think it's important to cover.
Yep.
I think it's also a helpful reminder for me. I mean, I've been doing this for eons now. And those questions, those answers are just kind of like pre-programmed in my head. Like I don't even really think about them anymore, just because like I kind of have like a mental canned response. Like you get that out of office email bounce back.
Yeah.
It's like pre-written. There's like some pre-written scripts inside of my head for what I say to each of these. That then I meet with a new hypnotherapist and they're like, "What do I say when a client asks?" I'm like, "Oh, I haven't thought about that for 10 years." So I was like, I came up with an answer. So today I will share with you the answers and the refinements that I've made to those answers over the past 10 years of hypnotherapy, and you probably even longer.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So anything to add before we get rolling with question number one?
Well, I was just thinking about it, and it's most of the questions are just because there's a general lack of understanding about like how it works.
Yeah.
And that's seen in every single one of these questions. But I think that when you have an understanding of like how it works from like a 30,000 foot picture, it's like the questions don't make any sense. But that's how anything is from a beginner's perspective. It's like, well, I wouldn't ask that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, this is gonna be so dumb, but like, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
When they ask the computer, it's a joke. They ask the computer for the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and it says 42. And so the moral of the story is the answer to the perfect question doesn't matter. Asking the right questions is what matters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, funny enough, I'm going to say it wrong, so somebody correct me.
Okay.
But there is a early computer language that there's numbers that are associated with each commands.
Okay.
And oh man, now I even forgot the author's name. The author of the book. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh,
it's gonna come to me as soon as we turn the tape off.
Of course.
But this computer language would have been one of the main languages that people would have used. The author, being a huge nerd, would have known something about this. And the 42nd command in this computer language is basically a command for the user to input. And so it's like it means like a blank space.
It's like a blank command.
Whoever the user of that program is wanting to do, they put their information in that. And
oh wow, that makes the answer so much more deep.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. But the author has also said that he did it as a joke too, and that 42 doesn't mean anything. But he's also known for having layers to his jokes.
Yes. Well, and so I mean, when you explain that, what I took away from it is, what's the answer to life, the universe, and everything? It's a blank space.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, you put it,
so 42.
Insert here.
Yeah, insert here. And it took like, what was the joke? It took like a billion years for the computer to do that. Okay, I got one more for you. And then we're going to get to these questions, I swear. Did you know in The Matrix, I just read this somewhere, in the Matrix movies, have you seen those?
Yes.
Okay. In the Matrix movies, when Neo goes to meet the Oracle for the first time, she's in an apartment,
So
right?
spoon.
Yeah, the not a spoon part. when she first meets him, she offers him a cookie. And that's a joke about how when you visit a website, it asks you to accept their cookies. I was like, what? That's so clever. That one got me good. Have you heard that before?
I have heard that actually.
That's good. The first time this week, and I was like, that's so funny. I had no idea. I had no idea. Well,
Just the side note is like this is the point of the questions about today is many of the questions are saying like what is the right thing, so your metaphor is actually even more applicable for 42. It's just like so much of the answer is whatever you put into it.
yeah, whatever you put into it. Well, and yeah, asking good questions. You kind of have to have a baseline of information to ask a good question. So a lot of these questions we're going to go over today are indicative of somebody who does not have a baseline level of information
Yep.
about hypnosis.
Which is great.
Yeah. And so question one is, get this one probably the most all the time. How many sessions will I need? What do you say?
I usually give an example, and I talk about it from the perspective of even like the quote of the day today for me was right
Yeah.
that hypnosis is not a solution to a problem. It's a space that's created in order to make it so that learning can happen, so that change can happen. So it's way more about the space than it is about the number of sessions or anything like that. So I always explain that to clients, but I say I've had clients that they only needed one little tweak and it was one session and then they were done.
Yep.
I've also had clients that are just like, I like that space so much that they,
It's just my computer beeping.
I like that space so much that I want that space for me to continually be processing, for me to continually be going deeper. And so it's such a vague answer, I know, but I think it needs to be.
Well, it kind of reorients the focus, right? It's not so much about the solution as it is about the space away from everything else to view your life, right? And so some people, it does transition from, I need to fix this thing right now, to I
Right.
just need a consistent space in my schedule where I create that space for self-reflection. And so I do see, I mean, that's not even a question on the list, because I don't think people are aware enough about what hypnosis is to be able to ask that question. But I do see many of my clients transition from, I came in for this problem and now I continue for years with Jesse because I like having this space where I can self-reflect on my week.
And that last word in the sentence is what's so telling about it. It's like need. For what?
Oh yeah, how many sessions will I need?
And for what? Like do you think that you actually need something in order to fix yourself? That's going to play a role in the process.
Yeah.
And it could be just one. Hey, all you need to do is chill out.
Oh, got it.
Great.
Yeah, I've had those.
Yeah.
I was giggling because it's like, how many sessions will I need? Well, how many you need depends on what your need is.
Sure. That's great.
You could trip off on the word need. And then your mind is like, no. And so you can just need it until you answer the need of what it is that you need. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. You can quote me on that. You're welcome. Use it. I always tell them, I've got a great, like, little cheesy canned response. I always tell them, like, it depends on how quickly your mind, like, changes to the things that we're talking about, how quickly your mind picks things up. Some people, it's like, what do they call those people who, like, are professional, like, trippers, like psychedelic users? Call them, like, psychonauts. You heard of this?
Psychonauts? No.
So I'm going to get that wrong, but it's like something astronaut, but it's like psychonaut or hallucinaut. I don't know. But it's like, there's some people who just have like a mushy brain, not like in that they're not smart, but just like there's some people who are very rigid about things. And when they go on a psychedelic trip, they freak out because they're holding on a little too tight. And then there's other people who are just, I'm cool with everything. Everything is fine. And they have the best time. Some people have some mushy brains, and so you take them into...
I've got a mushy brain.
You do have a mushy brain. Very mushy brain. That's why you pick things up so quick. And so you take them into a trance, you're doing the work, and their mind is real mushy, and they just like, yeah, sounds like a great solution. I didn't think of that. Cool. And then other people are like, I can't accept that solution because
Yeah.
of this, because of this, because of this. I don't know how it will do. What if I'm not perfect at implementing the solution? Those individuals are going to take a little bit more time, not because of a lack of efficacy from the therapist, but because they need a little bit more convincing. The progress needs to be slow because this is a more rigid individual. There's nothing wrong with being a rigid individual. There's wonderful things that come from that. However, turning that ship is going to take a little bit more time. And so I always tell them my canned answer, you can use it, is there's no way to really tell how many sessions a person needs. We will assess for that during our initial consultation. However, what I can say is that every client I've ever had has felt a change after the very first session. And so it's like, I don't know how long it will take to get to your goal because I don't know what your goal is. And the goal that you tell me probably isn't your actual goal, right? I also don't know what obstacles are in the way of that goal. So we're going to have a first consultation. However, I want to encourage my client, though, my potential client, and say, I've never had somebody who doesn't feel different after the first session. They can notice changes after one session. And so it's very encouraging. It's like, okay, I don't know, but it's going to start working immediately. And I think that gives people a lot of hope. And so I like that phrasing.
I'm very aware of how much security and uh, optimism you can create for the most rigid of clients.
Oh,
Because that I was like that's great.
it's a good one.
That I'm like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's gonna depend on you.
I do think I heard that from somebody at HMI actually.
Which is just I don't know.
No. The you'll
Oh, what you
experience a
just said.
change after first session. I mean, I've tweaked it, but I do
Sure.
think initially going through that longer course, that's the 300-hour course,
5 for some people.
Oh, 500 hours. Yeah, it's true. Someone was saying like you'll feel different after the first session. Like that's important to remind the client of. And so I've incorporated that into my initial consultation phone call. And it's been really good. People are like, oh, okay. And you can kind of see like their energy peaks up. They're like, okay, great. This isn't going to be like a 6-month program. Like I'm going to feel different. Like after meeting with Jesse one time, it may not all be fixed, but I can tell something's moving. And I think people get stuck in a rut. They just want to feel movement.
Which I don't know. Which I feel like that does give people a lot more security when you're answering it that way. I don't think that a different way would be worse. There's certainly because I see this picture of the difference between us, where in that way what that does is it gives like a pamphlet. Like this is the image in my head. It gives a pamphlet, and then it's got a big asterisk on the very bottom, and it's just like, hey, these are all the things so you can feel better about yourself. But just so you know, like all of these things, like I can't guarantee any of them.
Yeah.
But that's all that people need sometimes.
It's true. They just want to be able to think about it.
Yeah, and I'm over here just like sitting on a boat, like there's like a hurricane going on, and I'm just like sitting on like a little dinghy boat with like Baba Yaga going.
I mean, you can hop in if
What
you want.
you want to see?
What is he?
You want
So I think it's a great. I mean, it's a great thing to be aware of. Like, it's got to be authentic to you too. But those are the ways that we answer those questions. I mean, I think I see like people want hope, and I think you're dealing with those rigid clients who are like, I need answers now, and it's like I'm going to intentionally frustrate that in the beginning so we start off on the right foot.
yeah.
And I mean, I think there's wisdom in both.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Question number 2. Why did I take my glasses off? Will I lose control during hypnosis? Zach.
Me first.
You first.
Absolutely not.
I will be asking the questions. That's an office quote. Not like mildly racist Jesse. That's I mean, do you know the reference?
Yes. Yeah.
Where it's like knock knock, who's there? What does he say? Like the Gestapo or something?
Gestapo slap him.
And then he slaps him. And he's like, we ask the questions. Will I lose control during hypnosis, Zach?
You're making me lose control right now.
I often have that effect.
The simple answer is absolutely not. The more nuanced answer is it depends on how much control you want to give up. Never totally out of control. And I've had clients that have gone into deep trances. We've done some really great work because they've been so open, and they're going deeper and they're going deeper, and then all of a sudden they go from quite literally an experience that I have.
Yep.
The client's posture. He moved in session. He started drooling.
He
Uh,
was gone.
he was gone.
Gone.
And then he all of a sudden, I said something that I later found out was his brain attached to it, anchored to, and then brought him to dealing with something else that he was not ready to deal with, and he goes from drooling on himself to,
Whoa, just like that.
and his eyes just opened up, and he was just like, that was really great. Like,
Oh, I've had that happen too, where they're like, "We're done." I was like, I mean, I wasn't intending to be done, but but
if you want to be
we
done,
can be done now.
yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's what he said. He was just like, I don't even think that he wasn't even like resistant with it. He was
No, it
just
doesn't
like,
sound like
that was
he.
great.
Yeah, it sounds like his unconscious knew, and consciously when he came out, he didn't even know.
And he was done.
That's fantastic, and that's what's so great about it. It's like I love that it works that way.
Hmm.
So, well, so let me give you a little pushback. I'll answer myself in a minute, but the pushback is, well, if that's true, then what about all the stuff that I see on stage
Right.
hypnosis stuff, like squawking like a chicken, barking like a dog? People are screaming and running off the stage. Like, what is that?
My blood pressure just went up actually
I can see that.
because I was frustrated. I hate that stuff.
Can you tell me your personal feeling about that stuff? Like it is kind of like well, you don't have to go too deep if you don't want to, but that is a personal, like there's a personal emotional response to that suggestion for you.
Yeah. So the person that's clucking like a chicken on stage. There's a long process that the stage hypnotist, not hypnotherapist, the
Very
stage
different.
hypnotist
Very different.
is looking and manipulating people in the audience from the very beginning of the show, sometimes before the show even starts, by giving suggestions like want to see somebody cluck like a chicken, or want to
Ooh.
see somebody lose total control over acting like a human being. And so the hypnosis actually starts, and the suggestions start even in the marketing materials. Now, the issue with that person is, are they losing control? No, because they've been particularly weeded out in order to make it so that,
Filtered.
yeah, filtered, to make it so that they're the person that's chosen to do that, and they
Mhm.
were going into it with the at least the unconscious intention to do something like that.
Right.
And
Right.
then they just get manipulated into doing it, and then their response is, oh, I was totally out of control. I can't believe I did that. Yeah, you did. and
Nice.
and, and you believe that you were going to do that yesterday,
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
just today. That's not true.
Not true.
But it was probably the person that was either so anxious about doing that they were easily manipulated into doing it, or it was the person that was so interested in getting that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I if somebody's like, what about that case? They look like they're totally out of control. I'm going, no, they're not. They're just not.
Yeah,
Mm.
they're not. Mm. Is the emotional response to this idea that people can be manipulated for you?
Uh, I don't like how somebody does, and we see this all over the place. So it's not
Mm.
just stage hypnosis that frustrates me in this principle. It's frustrating to me because there's somebody that's taking something that could be used for such good, manipulating it for
Mm.
just a paycheck.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I mean, you see that with everything from
With many things. Absolutely.
politics, some religious cults, uh, 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 business, work environments, all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So my answer to the question, will I lose control during hypnosis? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And anybody who's a hypnotherapist will tell you that what may seem like you're losing control, and this is what I will tell people, is during hypnosis, there will be things that you no longer care to pay attention to. uh you will be working on yourself and like those unconscious suggestions and problems inside of your emotions that you're coming here to solve, and so other things are just not going to matter to you, right? Like
Okay.
drooling on yourself, your head tilting,
I don't care.
whatever you say, you might like cry on yourself, whatever. It's just, all of those things will happen and it may look like you're losing control, but it's not. You just are more focused on the work that's happening inside. I don't care if I cry on myself. I don't care if my nose is running. I don't care if I'm drooling. I'm doing such great work in here that the
Yeah.
other stuff doesn't matter.
It's just so important here.
Right. And that type of stuff is what leads to people thinking they lose control. You don't. You're just focused on something else, right? You ever like been watching a TV show and you let your food burn in the oven? Did you lose control? No, you just
Yeah.
were focused on the TV show and like, oh yeah, I got to get my food out of the oven. That was happening today. Food almost burned in the oven before we started recording. It's much more like that, right? Or like an actor, right, on stage, who's performing a play, right? Like, if you're playing Pinocchio here on stage, did you lose your identity as a human being outside of that show? No, you're just playing a character on stage, which is the same thing that the hypnotist in a stage show is going to do for you too.
Right. And the most extreme, just ridiculous thing that we overlook
Mm.
is like, this is ridiculous.
Much of this is ridiculous.
It's like nobody would say, oh man, I really lost I really lost control over myself, and like I totally lost myself while I was having sex. Should never do that. Like
Yeah.
that is actually to a certain extent kind of the goal in some sort of situations where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I lost control of the time. Like, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I lost control of the time.
I
Or I
lost.
lost myself in that pleasurable experience, right? I
Yeah,
was making weird noises. I said funny things. Like I did weird stuff. It's like, yeah, that's what we were doing. Like that was the point.
that's the point.
Right. Same thing with hypnotherapy.
And which also brings up another point, which is
Yeah.
um how many people experience a loss of the ability to consciously pay attention to time. And so like that there is a loss of control about that.
Like how long the hypnotherapy session lasted?
Yeah.
Yeah, because time's up here,
Yeah. Yeah.
not back here where we're doing hypnosis.
And so I get a lot of clients that I'll even like say this and make sure that they know this so that I can give them more control the next time, which is I'll say like at the end of the first session, I'll say, how long did that feel?
I often ask that too.
And
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
like, I don't know, it was pretty quick, 5 minutes. It was 48 minutes. And they're like,
Whoa.
oh wow. It's like, yes, there is like a giving up of some things in because of a trusting relationship that you have with the hypnotherapist to say, I'm okay. You can manage time. You can manage my drool.
Yeah.
You can manage what things look like.
If I fall out of the chair, I'll make sure you have a pillow so you can lay on the floor and we can continue.
Yeah, exactly.
Your body chose it needs to recline now. I love that for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, no, absolutely, resoundingly, you will not lose control. That is not something that can be done. That's not something that will be done. The only thing that can cause you to lose control would be like drugs. Like if you take anesthesia before surgery, you will lose control of your body.
Yeah.
Like, and we are not giving anybody any drugs like during hypnotherapy sessions. So no, there'd be no loss of control. You will have complete control of your mind. That, oddly enough, that's why I started taking the hypnotherapy courses, because I believed it was mind control. And I'm like, well, if that's real, I should probably go learn about it so I can be safe from it. And then very quickly realized Oh, wow. Oh, I am all wrong. All wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question number 3. What if I can't be hypnotized? Maybe I'll start with this one.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
start.
I'll start with this one. Not for any reason, just go back and forth. But what if I can't be hypnotized? I've actually changed my answer slightly on this.
Okay.
And you can see that in the email that we sent out, because anybody who's taken the course has heard me say my little spiel about this question. But in the email newsletter that we sent out last week, I answered it a little bit different. And if you are not part of the email newsletter, you definitely should sign up. TraumaFocusedHypnotherapy.com. You scroll down a little bit. There's a button that says Join Mailing List, and you will actually get access to all of this content before we even post it on the podcast. So it's a great way to get a head start and to get a bunch of free little gifts too. So I have changed in that newsletter. It used to be, I said there are only 3 types of people who cannot be hypnotized, right? 1 are children under the age of 8 because they don't have a prefrontal cortex that's developed enough to concentrate. So basically, they're always hypnotized.
They're always.
They're always hypnotized. That's why kids will talk to people who aren't there and see things that aren't there and play make believe and imagination all day long because they are operating completely unconsciously. And so, you know, a lot of those questions like, do we have to go back to childhood, right? It's like, well, no, not necessarily, but we do have to go back to a childhood mind
Yeah.
because we got to turn off all that conscious and critical stuff and deal with these things like a child would. And if you look at any of the great like big spiritual religious movements too, all of them have that metaphor about like you have to have a child mindset.
Yeah.
And so you can see like just the scientific grounding for what we've known as human beings for so long. And it's so cool. Anyways, okay, so
Yeah.
1, kids under 8, you can't do traditional hypnosis because they don't have a conscious brain that needs to be hypnotized. You just do play therapy. And you do play therapy hypnosis with them.
And they're already there.
We're already there. Anything to add to that?
I was just like I mean,
I'll move on to the other 2.
yeah, let's move on to it. But that was a really great description, and it was making me think about all of the things that I've done with kids under 8. There's so much more healing at that age if those kid if that kid can have that safe space. Yeah. And I was just thinking about like, well, all of the things that have worked. I get some new toys in the office for kids that emotion spots have
Nice.
been really, really effective, and it's basically hypnosis.
Yeah, when you're telling me about your new feelings wheel, like they redid the feelings wheel and you liked how they kind of laid it out for feelings and stuff.
Comfortable versus uncomfortable
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah. So kids. So any client you have that's over 8, you're good to go. The other one is number 2, anybody who has like Alzheimer's or dementia to where they can't focus or concentrate or maintain um, like a sense of identity and awareness, right? If you don't know where you are, or who I am, it's going to be really hard to hypnotize you because you're just not there. And so that can kind of like move into traumatic brain injury stuff. Like if somebody has a struggle with that. Now, I'm not talking about like schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder, where I may not know who my body is or, what my name is. Those can still be hypnotized because the structure of the brain is still intact. But Alzheimer's or dementia alters the brain structure, and TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, also alter the brain structure. So very, very certain ones.
Yep.
We do a lot of hypnotherapy for traumatic brain injury stuff too.
But types of traumatic brain injury.
But there are types that aren't as hypnotizable.
So a type could be a traumatic brain injury, but not all traumatic brain injuries are unhypnotizable.
Correct. So as long as you are having a conversation with me on the phone, don't have dementia, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. And then the last one, this is the one I took out, actually.
Yeah.
I took it out.
Okay.
The last one is antisocial personality. Somebody who doesn't have empathy can't be hypnotized by a therapist because there has to be an emotional rapport in order to guide and lead that individual into a hypnotic experience. But there's a caveat with that, and there's a reason I left it out. Because those people who don't have that natural empathy response, they still can be hypnotized, but they hypnotize themselves because they can be empathetic with themselves. And so I took it out because I do think, and I've had individuals that, we've been able to do hypnotic work because instead of me leading it, I'm giving them the tools to lead themselves.
Yeah.
So, which is what we do in hypnotherapy, anyways, but I'm being much more intentional about teaching and then letting them hypnotize, which has been really cool, to be honest.
I think that you've always kind of put that caveat in there. So I don't know that if you're like going back on what you said.
I'm certainly not going back
Yeah.
on what I said. I'm just
Yeah.
refining it and making it
Yeah.
even more narrow. There's only two kids under 8, and as long as your brain works. Everybody else, good to go. And actually, the more anxious and resistant you are, probably the better for me.
Well, so let me pose a question for you. Is like what do you do when you get that client? Well, I tried hypnotherapy before and it just didn't work. I just like sat there and I like it. I don't think that I can be hypnotized.
Well, there's two answers. There's the one in my head is like, well, you haven't met me yet.
I mean,
that's
you're not
that's
wrong.
that's the confidence piece.
You're not wrong.
But then you know how we have thoughts in our heads as therapists, and then like we filter it what the client needs to hear, and then we say it. It's the same thing, but just filtered for them.
I actually don't know anything about that. What do you mean?
Don't worry about it, Zach. Separate
People
podcast episode.
people do that?
What? um. So in my head, I'm like, well, you haven't met me yet. I was like, I'm different. Um, but then what I say out of my mouth is like, well, tell me what happened and why you feel that way. I'd like to learn more. And usually what they'll say is like, I didn't squawk like a chicken. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to get you to squawk like a chicken. If
Yeah.
that's the marker of hypnosis, then you're going to be disappointed with me too. So we should probably talk about it now because I will not take control of your brain.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I like to use the one when somebody says that to me, I go, well, I mean, have you ever been stressed?
once or twice.
Yeah, and I go like, has stress ever kept you up at night? That's because you are in the process of putting yourself in a trance and making it so that you can't relax and sleep because there's something that's so important and so demanding of your your attention that it was hypnotizing you. And that's why you couldn't actually go to sleep. And then they go, well, that's not like what I see on TV. And then they come back around to exactly what you were saying, or I didn't squawk like a chicken or anything like that.
Right, right. I will say, as I'm thinking about the questions that I get asked from clients, kind of on this, what if I can't be hypnotized? Will I lose control? These questions kind of go hand in hand. The one that people will say is like, what about all those stories of like, Russian sleeper agents who like have a trigger word and then they go like set off some nuclear device, right? Kind of like out of a superhero comic book, you know? It's like, what's the reality behind that? And it's like, well, there is there's a grain of truth to many things, right? The grain of truth behind that is it can be that you have an anchor, right? And an anchor is just like kind of like that trigger word, right? That brings back an experience. Kind of like triggered, right? If you've ever been triggered, you know what I'm talking about. You're living your day, you're happy, carefree, go lucky, and then someone says something that reminds you of a time when something bad happened, and your mood goes from here down to here, right? And you might start being really pissy. You might start being really grumpy, right? It's like, what was that? Well, it's like that would be an example of what the comic book is taking and then making it really big.
Right.
I will say oftentimes those type of experiences that we see are combined with like torture, right? So like when somebody
Yeah.
is about to lose their life, is being tormented, is being totally controlled life and limb by someone who's holding them captive, you can start to brainwash them. And so there are elements of hypnosis in brainwashing, just like there's elements of cutting people into tiny pieces in surgery.
Sure.
we make small incisions, go in and fix a problem and come back out in surgery. In the medieval ages, we chop people's heads off with broadswords.
Yeah.
It's about as similar as brainwashing and hypnosis are.
Yeah.
So they're both like this, they're both cutting procedures. This is both mental procedures, but that's as far as the similarity goes.
Well, and just think about just like film and the movie industry is so much of that is like close enough to reality that it really gets us to buy in.
Yes.
but it's not reality.
Mm-mm.
And everybody knows that it's not reality because we have so much experience with it. And so it would be obvious if somebody was saying, well, this is what life was like in that rom-com. And it's like, that's what you want out of a relationship? Like, most people
Yeah.
are not going to sit there and say, well, I learned what I know about relationships from 90s rom-coms.
That's good. And by good, I mean so terrible. My wife got me to watch The Notebook finally.
No.
Well, how'd you like it? I was like, what a stupid movie.
This
She's like, what? I was like, I couldn't stand the main female lead. I was like, she's driving me crazy.
She's annoying.
Annoying. Anyways, but she's like, but like, I mean, like, yeah, some of the elements were romantic, but it's just like I couldn't even get into it because it was so ridiculous.
Well, I mean, and that's also the flip side of this is everybody knows that it's ridiculous in some situations. Like, we're getting ready to do this presentation on Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
And so
Spooky Empire.
Spooky
We are
Empire,
presenting.
Yeah. In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yeah. Actually, well, maybe we'll expedite the uploading of this one so they can hear about it. So next week, by the time you hear this, we'll be presenting Spooky Empire.
Well, like, nobody's sitting here. Well, I'm sure somebody is, actually. I take that back.
Well,
Most people who enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street are not sitting there saying, oh my God, this could happen to me next week. It's just that you know that it's theater. You know that that's a real person with makeup on. The reason why it gets us is because it does tune into something on a deep level.
Yes.
And our experience with that theater is what moves us to change or to have an experience.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's just like, I need to make sure that none of my friends are being tormented by Freddy Krueger
with knife fingers. It's a little silly.
Yeah, it is a little.
It's a little silly.
And if you talk to the actor that plays Freddy Krueger and you'd be like, hey, I'm glad to meet you, but please don't torment me in my dreams, he's going to look at you funny.
He's gonna, you good?
So I think it's the same thing with this.
Agreed.
Can I be hypnotized? Right there, you see a conscious ability, and this is the benefit of the conscious mind, but the conscious ability to put barriers and boundaries around things that need to be there sometime, but also it's good for them to be removed.
100%. 100%. So, nope, you will not be controlled, and it's totally safe. It is a pathway into your emotions and mind to actually make some solid change. Well, we made it through 3 out of 10. I'm proud of us, Zach. Nice job. Tune in for part 2. We'll get through another 3.
Part 2 of 17.
Part 2 of 7. I know. It's probably going to get worse as we go, not better. This was the most expeditious out of all, I'm sure.
I bet. And well, the questions got even more complicated.
It's true. The questions do get more complicated. And if you've got a question, send us an email, right? Let us know. If we've been in the ethos of hypnotherapy for so long, sometimes we forget what those beginning stage questions are. So if you got a good one, send it over to us. We'd love to include it in the next episode. And it's kind of nice that we're chopping it up like this. We can kind of include fan submission questions in the last take.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.